Namo Guru Be Namo Bedaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sangaya Namo Guru Be Namo Bedaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sangaya Namo Guru Be Namo Bedaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sangaya Kanden Lanje Gwenje Dogane Raka Shoza Bonde Chonzenze Chöye Yabo Gwenje Lo Sancha Sedan Cheba Ne De So De Naga Se De Be De Jeze Lama Gebe Zong Kanje Dalo De Be So Na Shen Chong Lord, So Thank 나게 주주 예배 선언제 로라베제 산제 로바라쇼
선제
선제 조나라 전주마도 나네 년선제 나게 주주 예배 선언제 로라베제 산제 로바라쇼
선제
조나라 전주마도 나네 년선제 나게 주주 예배 선언제
罗平时上街罗吧，有世界他们就投资了那个样子，我做生意工作什么之类的，他们第一期是特别13年，不过没得生意是专门自己晒单的，什么事？
I would like to remind every one of ourselves to take a moment and cultivate the highest form of motivation. We call it bodhicitta motivation or the altruistic motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of motivation, we should participate in this Lamrim discourse on the stages of the path leading to enlightenment by Manjushri Lama Tsongkhapa. Allow me to read about a couple of pages from this Lamrim Chemo, the great treatise on the stages of the path of enlightenment, volume number 3 in the English translation of the Lamrim, page 189, to give you the blessing of oral transmission followed by explanation.
Drag ngủ trở về đó chứ nó chuyện thế yang tao được rồi nó sẽ bảo sẽ ra bên trở về yang ở trong bao nhiêu bữa ngủ trở về có bao nhiêu bữa xong thì về sẽ cái được cái đó trong bao sẽ cho không có ngủ trở về Geshe yodane ngô na ra ye tam ba cha ba ye do ye ba ne ma ye no ba she de be she ba to mi me ba to ba ne khang li wen ju wan ye de ju she da ba ye chi hi me ba ni bo ju wan ju ra ye zo da da ma ye ba ra ji me be to ni ba ye ba go na ra ji me ba ji ra ba de da na ra ngo je ba ra ye ba ji Rahi nambata je deva gode mero ngote da ya wa todo ye kede raji me ye je che de rahi shinyi rahi me Shede rahi me lan do wa rahi ma wa nyelo na rahi ye de rahi be rang de le be cheda ra shi de da man ji he so da bu de da ba ra she ba de ye de ke de ce ga na she ba ni je ngo ba ra she me ba na ma na do ba she na ne te na ma de pe de te ba yen jo she na ma de ne ce ga na she me ba ni yi ngo ba na je na ye ngo ba she da wa ke de ce ga na she me ba ni ji ba ngo ba na je na she me ba ni ngo ba she ba ne ra she me ba ni ya ka ba ni je she da ngo ba na ra she ya da ba che ba ra jo la ra she ya da ba che be she da to ba ma yin ba ni jo ro She the saw so be the Namata, she lung don't boy, cousin Jura Shivi, the mother, the Joanna, you don't boy, Taguing ever. Jimba song Kanta, don't boy, the daughter was over Shivi, Tony, don't boy, Tawa Shiva, Rashi, Tom, young, Tawa, message. Roshi don't be Tombala, Dambara song, Ngobora Tawa, Sumba, Deve, Butapal, Kata Gobana, Yavan, Ngobara, but Tombo, Nisa, Java, Tenji, Java. Di Ju, Tonga change, Givangova, Leva, Givangova, Yavana, Mayano, Shangovano, Wotomba, you to rub the Tembana. Ngomba shema de dobara ni je khoda tomba ye la ngomba ye do ngomba shema da la ni ye shin khang ge jang ngomba shema de do me ni de pe na jie me de shi me ba no jie me ba di shin ji je se ba go yin ba de la na me ba ni zi di ba shu ba she de ne ba shi ni ne ba shi de She better de was also be share over the machine no pay. I mean, the Kaji Gala Kaji Gala no long he Jevana. No major Jeves even tell her nor mean to go down the Baba John my J nor me what day nor tell her nor do son nor me never Yeba. Geshe me ba da ngo bo no ra shi ye me che wa la ra shi me do she she ji ba no ra shi me de nyang de su na ma bo de je ba ti ma bo ti je ba de be be ti zhong ka la yin da ki zhen xun zhen de ti le mo shi jian guo de ma sheng da ti xie ne Teresa, Tedder Karsa. In the German, the Union, who's a new by the Lindsay Mizudi Mizudi, of Pumble, Mojo, Rahin, Num, Da, Carbon, Rahin, Num, Da, Medonia, Sheriff Jella. Sheriff, the Urashima, Tayan, Golden, Omabi, Tower soon by Inde. Children and him about Toby, shut up ye, you see be shadows. Did a dark carza get Teta in your joint medium, did that the taxi jog, Haruma, you got my mine, Slavina. In a that is the Yomba Jivarilla, because you could tell your mother, that Yomba Zena, in the Denzun to Danny, caught in the Corratua Yomara. Said that the Yomba the Java, the Jibari, said the Yomba leads to me. Here, Pumble da, you say here, Pumble around water around here, Cabana, around here, nam royi sana da sana ti me to nyen be shere jigir wase ti da me pumba mai sana pumba mai lo jigir pumba res pumba lo jigir ma ji o ti ma royi tongba yise royi me tongba yimbe res ma royi me lo jigir wase wa shere di royi me ba ti go na ni o ma be da su ji ma yin dis te da o ma be ju ju ne me na te kha se ten jung shi ne royi me ba de job ne royi ye ba de ka ni royi me je sha ji ta bi te wa ju ya da 他人这入到这个直接吧，我现在就是让西没有到现在这个他人的也不搞这个，因为这个我们到啥瞬间着了，瞬间着了，没法睡着是个完了。
Geshe read from page 189 to 193 on the top, so back to page 189. What Geshe explained is this, that according to Madhyamigans or middle way philosophers, if something were to exist intrinsically, then it would have to withstand what is known as the four alternative ways of existence. It would have to exist in one of those ways. When you don't find anything under that kind of analysis, what that indicates is that things don't exist intrinsically. But the critics, for some reason, for them, if nothing exists intrinsically, right, then nothing can exist at all, right? And so then they thought that Madhyamigans are really refuting conventional existence of things. The Madhyamigans are basically saying that nothing exists at all. But Madhyamigans have been doing their best to communicate to them, this is not what we mean. And what we're saying is that things exist conventionally, but they don't exist intrinsically, And if something were to exist intrinsically, then it would have to exist under one of those four alternative ways of analysis, because nothing is found under that analysis. So what we conclude is they don't exist intrinsically, but they could exist conventionally. And so they're not getting this message through the critics, and some Madhyamigans may be getting a little frustrated. They say, it's just like, trying to explain things to a, mad person. Mad means crazy one, right? You're really not trying to make sense to them, So we're having that hard time. And according to middle way philosophy or Madhyamiga, that things do exist conventionally, and but they lack intrinsic existence. So they use the reasoning of dependent arising, but it's samutpatenjung, to establish that things exist conventionally, but they don't exist intrinsically. Okay, so that's the whole point. Whereas critics are thinking that non-intrinsic existence equals to complete non-existence. So they're still hearing things like, well, I think you're still saying that nothing exists at all, And so Madhyamigans are saying that if this is what you think, we are saying, then you are really not understanding the middle way philosophy. Middle way philosophy means that things exist conventionally, but not intrinsically, because they are dependently arisen or dependently existent. Okay.
지당선은 따와 가서开学时呢 아니 당번에 지연 메시지 제시 양 충어리 tanye도 tan는 요거 싶으셔야지 양 돈이 되면 줘야지 이거는 가리게 예바만 매번 있어야지 거기 누지 되지 고모 주된데 누지 이기스 거야 나디 그게 되면 어디 제가 드려 거기 출발 뭐 정도가 제가 뒤서는 네 출발 컨디션으로 쓰는 데스가 왔다 먼저 지대 용자가 비게 또 아무저 거야 이게 간거지 세미저도 네가 추실 샤고라 유진이를 파베냠이야 유토고야 어디 챤는 리베주도 저고 그랬어 로 파베냠이야 유토다 리베주도 세야죠 말에 동네 니세야죠 어디로다 뭔데 투모 통화도 가데 켈랭 거디 디고랑 충어 요점을 요번에 저서 요 말했어 어디 가서 투모 통화도 그저 저는데 요새 그러와 얘네 뒤 요거 치고 말했어 어디 라로 어쨌든 다
같이 있어 거로 오게.
라
요거 최고 말했어요. 같이 있어 거로.
어서 이거 치고 맞고 타니 가시에서는 얘네 중国유어서야지야 중국 유발도 타니 유어 상계 주도 와 근데 다 타니 유어 요거 치고 뭐 가지고 더먹을 미에서는 다 중국 유어 타니 미에서는 더다 공주 되게는 비지를 찍받아 사러 와라 그렇죠
all this metaphysical kind of argumentation debate that we have witnessed is related to different philosophical standpoint that different schools have taken with regard to, how do things actually exist? I mean, do they exist, and how do they exist? Okay? And so there are many different philosophical standpoints. For example, some ascribe to the view of nothingness, right? So nothing exists at all, right? That's and it's often attributed to the Hoshang's philosophy that everything is just like illusion and nothing exists at all, right? Some other schools they think that things must exist truly. They accept true existence, or dendu in Tibetan, including emptiness. Emptiness must be truly existent, right? That's otherwise it wouldn't, it couldn't exist. Or some other schools say that, we would say that things are neither existent nor non-existent. So what is it? They're neither existent nor non-existent, So they have that kind of a standpoint. And some people would say that things exist only for what we call the deceptive perceptions, or tulshe, mistaken perceptions, but they really don't exist. Some say, if things exist for deceptive perceptions or mistaken perceptions, tulshe in Tibetan, it still qualifies as existence. So we find in all these different philosophical standpoints, and so all of these things are related to the arguments that we have been dealing with. And so people who maybe claim that nothing exists in reality at all, maybe one of the ways they propound that kind of philosophy is for them, they think that if something were to exist, it would have to exist as an object for transcendental wisdom, Arya's wisdom in the state of meditation, meditative equipoise on emptiness, isn't it? And for that wisdom, nothing exists, except in emptiness, right? So therefore, they said, because that is such a high-level wisdom, if it doesn't perceive things to exist, that means things don't exist at all, right? That's how they are, coming. Then, nothing exists at all. We are all in illusions, world. So we have to kind of sort out all these different philosophical standpoints to be able to understand the Madhyamiga's, standpoint, where they claim that, things exist conventionally, right? What we perceive through our sensory perceptions, valid perceptions, they do exist. We cannot refute that. Madhyamigans are not invalidating, what we experience and perceive through our valid sensory perceptions. They do exist. But they don't exist intrinsically, because they are all dependently existent, or they are dependently arisen phenomena, okay? And these things we experience really do not exist for the wisdom of Aryas or the transcendental beings in that deep meditation. But that does not mean that these things don't exist. Are you with me so far, right? So all these things we need to sort out,
어디 가서다 런시 유민이가 수지보다 들어와셔야 부모들 런시 녀들이 싫어디 유 런시 메와 제대로 집에 수지 뭐 뭐시 제대로 가다 디디야 런시 예바 많이 메바 많이 시가 되래도 니가 수지 버스도 런시 예바다 말에 메바 말레스 어디 디데 은되게 될라 애는 될야 저와도 다 지치고 그러습니다 제가 풍부의 런시 메도 예베 싫어디 유 런시 메现在是顺心嘛，没有现在这不过人心没多是老的脏了，人心没啥的这个那人心干啥没把过嘛，人心吃不干过嘛，人心没把干过嘛吧？哦，现在你看这干着嘞，人心没是老的脏，你人心嘛做不得看这干个的是。没有些早些来听不着，但比如可能都空定是了吧？ 给的东面中世东方中世也把就没多中世也没东方也把看了就先送吧别没东把这样没别让西没别东把了让西没别东把也把嘛用的娘那是现在有空的钱呢现在让西也把嘛没把嘛应该嘛是老的空着的在有推行的这些啊这了空钱呢这了点呢让西嘛吃吧嘛吃吧嘛一些个那个听是
So at the bottom of page 189, volume number 3 in the English translation, on the top of page 190. On the top of page 190, there is a stanza which is quoted from Arya Nagarjuna's fundamental treatise, right? That's one stanza. So based upon that, some critics assert that phenomena are neither inherently existent nor non-inherently existent. They said, look at that, we got a passage from Nagarjuna's, which really is basically saying that things are neither intrinsically existent nor non-intrinsically existent. So that's why our position is they are neither existent nor non-existent. That's what it is. So the Madhyamikans are then arguing or debating with them. They said, how can that be? How can you make that kind of a claim that things are neither intrinsically existent nor non-intrinsically existent? When we claim that aggregates, which include the aggregate of form, don't exist intrinsically, right? You are arguing with us that we are refuting the existence of aggregates altogether, isn't it? How is that? We are simply refuting the intrinsic existence of aggregates, right? We are not refuting the non-intrinsic existence of aggregates. You just tell us, how are we invalidating or refuting aggregates altogether, right? That's not making any sense,
다시 딱 책도 자기 책도 다 들으시더라고. 그때 동미 중세 예수는 그때는 가서 동미세대다 랑시 미도 중세 랑시 유나 아니 동방 중세 여버지 가서 중세 예 동방 중세 여버지 미도 중세 예면 동방 여버 칼 지르시 거기 거다죠 랑시 미도는 랑시 초고 그래 랑시 초는 랑시 마저 메고 그래 티 파슬라레 랑시 쳐바다 마저 인가 많이 계시기요 말세 인디 리바디 코랑 카도 게르도 다 군이 거정은 응게 제바시도 여면은 걸사 내려pen 빼잖아 여면은 그게 조선디 당 많이 쉬어간 거 조선디 많이 차로 그러다 조선디 많이 게 셴바 많이 게 연지가 많이 쓰는 디가요 말아 어 디레서지 제가 디신의 랑시 좁신이라 랑시 맞아버디 용고 말 랑시 맞아버는 랑시 좁아디 용고 말이 제가 군이가 많이 베디 매바 디레 용고 쓰고 말이스 그 롱디 동선데 이자라와 딱 그런 가지 그런 데 랑시 좁아 많이 맞아 많이 써야지 데데도가
노서 게데 중세 again 동 미나세데 게세 중세 동과 민바세데 랑시 룸나스 걸
어디 중세 그세 동 게데 동미 중세 예 세대잖아 아니 랑시 미동바 유는 시워라
랑시 미동바
미동라 동미스 미동바라
알로
그러와 중세 예는 동바 중세 여버就是아니 또 랑시 미동바데 또 랑시 쳐바데 가려 용토고 말아봐스
알로
미동바 예는 동바가 용토고 말아봐스 요마 그인 거라
no.
어디서 왔다
No. So I went on page 190. So that stanza from Arya Nagarjuna's fundamental wisdom, which the critics have misinterpreted it, right? And then they make that claim as if Nagarjuna's source indicates that things are neither intrinsically existent nor non-intrinsically existent, And according to Geshe's explanation, what the Madhyamikans say is that you got the completely wrong interpretations of this passage, because intrinsic existence and non-intrinsic existence are mutually exclusive categories, isn't it? If something exists intrinsically, right, then it could not exist non-intrinsically. If something were to exist non-intrinsically, then it couldn't exist intrinsically, right? You cannot posit some kind of a middle ground between these two mutually exclusive categories. You can say like, yeah, somewhere in the between these two there's something. There isn't, because these are mutually exclusive categories. Either it has to be this or either has to be that. It cannot be both, right? And the example Geshe has given is if we make a claim that all things must either be a table, right, or non-table things, isn't it? Okay. So there is nothing in between, right? That which is a table and not a table, right? We can't find anything like that. Just like that, we cannot think in terms of something that is both intrinsically existent and non-intrinsically existent. So that's not the meaning of that Nagarjuna's passage. What Nagarjuna is saying is that if anything were to exist slightly even non-intrinsically, what that thing suggests is that that couldn't exist. If anything were to exist even slightly non-intrinsically, right? That couldn't exist even slightly intrinsically, because those are mutually exclusive propositions, if you will. So that's the actual meaning of that passage.
There Tomadon Ranshin Tomadon like Shung Goju Tamji Zedo, Tetana Ranshin Medompan Ranshin Chubayinla. Ranshin Chuba Jungse Jami, Ranshin Chuba maybe Tomba made or Shemani, and Maw and Dele Shikes Jig, start Shung Tomo, you may say Ganga Ranshin, you mean got the Shido. Said the Ranshin Medomban Ranshin Chuba Insida. Said the Ranshin Chubayina. Ranshin may Tomba and Yoba Mayno Yamnas Karsadi. Chuba Jungse Jam maybe Ranshin Chuba maybe Tomba and Meto Shemani. And Dele Karasa, Hikish or Jihi, Daddy Kare. Don't say at the Ranshin Tomba, that Ranshin Karsa. There was Ranshin Medoban and Ranshin Chuba in. That Ranshin Chuba in, and the Ranshin Chuba Tomba Jam. Tomba Jungse Jam maybe. Ranshin Chuba maybe. Tomba made Shemo and Dele, Hikish or Jihi is the Donna. And there Ranshin. Medomba Ranshin Chuba Ranshin Chuba the Jungse Jam Meva Inza, Ta Ranshin Majo Corona Mes Lavna. In the Gimula Redo Mare, Redo or so what is it? Did you know any Gimula Nil Chavoris?
No, so when in the middle of page 190, and so what Geshe explained is this. That Tongba, emptiness, right, which is the same as non-intrinsic existence, right, and intrinsic existence, these are mutually exclusive phenomena, if you will. And just because we refute that a phenomenon could not even slightly exist intrinsically, right? How could you take that to mean that a phenomenon could not exist, non-intrinsically at all, right? It does not suggest that, right? If we say that something cannot even slightly exist intrinsically, right? It does not in any way indicate that it could not exist non-intrinsically at all, right? Because those two are totally two different things.
Xian Yugula Ranshin, Yugutabula Ranshin, Ramu Ranshin made the Yam Zibi. Nevatini, Yugula Ranshin Menduko Yam Zinji. Ranshin Mevati, Dogo Shem, Menduko Yamba, Ikaya, Menzimba, Menzipa, and make some last, Kanan the show, Kanan the show, but Chela, Toshidon, Che River Laos. Said on this, you will Ranshin Miss Lao de Zana, and teach Lotica, you will Ranshin into some teacher degree mother. Rashi Meva Tindu say at Oya, Rashi Meva Yuva do say at about the head up on Dumars, Rashi Meva Mangati, Rashi Miss, yeah, you Rashi Meva is a law, Shaggy mother. Rashi Meva the Yota Miss, today on Jeva Yomara, or Jin Younger, essay. Didn't young but the Garrison, it is also because someone when it down it. Suya assembly, good Kambaya washing any Samutana, any Lamsa Haku. So that's the Kashidis of Sharawa. The Kanang, the money does a Kade, Lord Chatan to Kade to Tik Tak in Lamsa Haku, really.
Okay, mega. So Geshe is explaining what you find stated on towards the bottom page 190 with the example of seedling or sprout. When we claim that a sprout is non-intrinsically existent or it lacks intrinsic existence, what it's simply saying is that the sprout itself does not exist intrinsically, right? You don't have you don't have to you're not making a claim that non-intrinsic existence itself is existent, okay? Because I hope I'm remembering this technical term right. When we talk about mega is non-affirmative negative phenomenon, isn't it? Mega, non. Which one is the right one? Somebody has to remind me. Do you remember that technical term? Affirmative negative phenomenon and non-affirmative negative phenomenon. Okay, there's a technical term. So Tibetan word is mega. I hope I got it right. If not, we will check with that Tibetan term. And I think it's a non-affirmative negative phenomenon. It simply states that a sprout does not exist intrinsically, right? It does not affirm that non-intrinsic existence of sprout is existent as well. It does not affirm anything else, beside, what it is, and that is the mega emptiness, right? And to be able to understand this phenomenon, we said, we really have to look within ourselves and try to, sort out our conceptual clarity and thinking, how phenomena, including sprout, exists dependently, and it doesn't exist intrinsically in and of itself, right? We somehow, through that thinking, understand that a sprout, lacks intrinsic existence. That's the understanding of the emptiness of the sprout. Now, we don't have to go by does the non-intrinsic existence of the sprout exist as well, right? We don't have to extend that logic somewhere because that's not a part of that whole notion of emptiness. Emptiness is a non-affirmative negative phenomenon. My God, that's a whole mouthful to say. Why can't it be so short like Tibetan mega? But the whole mantra, non-affirmative negative phenomenon. Okay, let's try that. No. Tadi karde tondar bud kashe olge.
Tondar desi ora ta karsa deshi gazere. Kanje kada kosi de rangshi yeba de mai meba mai siglo yago yorwa. Orwa dadi rangshi ta nyugo rangshi me se ko karde de rangshi meba zinde yorwa.
Lare.
但这个人西没那这个人西有吧干没把人家干死了是吧？是吧？是个人西没把干个嘛，个人西没把真的是吧？现在这个但因为人家干头们都，可是这有个人有把干过，人老现在就干过什么就，但有个人有把这边老的有那地干说过了嘛，就人西没把这边老的可能个干个嘛的是，我就是意思。
Critics claim that phenomena are neither intrinsically existent nor non-intrinsically existent, right? Because these two categories, as we said, are mutually exclusive categories, but somehow, that's their claim, which seems like a very paradoxical, contradictory claim they're making. Things are neither intrinsically existent nor non-intrinsically existent, okay? And so now the Madhyamikins are kind of dealing with that standpoint here, issue. So Madhyamikins have been, doing their best to establish how everything exists conventionally, but lacks intrinsic existence or do not exist intrinsically, isn't it? Supposing we go with that supposition, things are non-intrinsically existent, right? And you have a realization of that. You have a perception that sprout, for example, is non-intrinsically existent. This very perception, right, cannot, this very perception cannot establish that sprout is intrinsically existent, right? Because it realized just the opposite. It says sprout is non-intrinsically existent. Now, if you want to establish that a sprout is intrinsically existent, you have to find another perception, realization, right, used to do that, isn't it? Okay? So if something is perceived as non-intrinsically existent, according to Madhyamikins, then that perception can refute the intrinsic existence of any phenomenon, isn't it? But for the critics, it isn't, because their claim is that things are neither intrinsically existent nor non-intrinsically existent. And so there is that paradox, right, in their standpoint.
Oh, 国家呢，如果了人心这边人心各万呢，人心没都年的也完全了是，但可能如果人心没是的，但人心没是老几也个完了。
No.
这也这弟兄嘛，弟兄老几现在也叫呢，老现些个人心没把的有的人是吧？但人心没把有把的，可是多出来的呢，人心没把有把的是吧？是吧？这嘛呢，体育里边各个面积是，人心没把有把里边各样要嘛是吧了？人心没把有把的要是吧？
要是吧？
那看着刚个是这一边吧，就是东一地人我找过，他的东一条可能如果在人心东把些，如果人心东把怎么嘛是，如果人心东把条，人心东，可你个人心东把几把是吧？我个用着，么的，如果人心没把有把的怎么干嘛的？如果人心没把别可是如果你录的用着人心吃不也是那我第二个你干个这些，如果他。ini nyugur rahi meba nyinga demba meba chigwa rwa. Rwa. Odi ka rma do nyugu yeba tsam ka ga marish. Rwa.
Ada di solo ke nyugu ka sa rangshin me to ba lo ta ga rang ge sa ba ke.
Lo ta ga rang lo to ji ke ti jo si wo da. Ya tang de da anda nyugu rahi me ko yue se nyugu de he yi ga rahi yeba yo de nyam de da. nyugu rahi meba de yue se zia yo rwa. Rwa. 어디 유에서 이제 받는 거야 요 말에서 유구랑시 메바데 여러 다 유구랑시 메바데 통하다고 열었어 어디 요면 거 그래 어디서 왔다
So according to Madhyamikins, a perception or realization of a sprout as non-intrinsically existent, right? It does not necessarily establish that the emptiness of the intrinsic existence of a sprout is existent. Okay. I hope I'm not confusing you. Let me repeat that one more time, right? A perception or realization of a sprout as non-intrinsically existent. It simply states that, realizes that a sprout is non-intrinsically existent, but it does not necessarily establish that the emptiness of the intrinsic existence of the sprout is existent as well. Okay? So that needs another mindset, isn't it? To be able to establish that the emptiness of the sprout is existent as well. There's another mind, right? We need that. Okay. So just like the sprout is non-intrinsically existent. Its emptiness too is non-intrinsically existent, which need to be established by some other, perception. Okay. So by establishing that sprout lacks intrinsic existence, we are not invalidating or refuting the very existence of the sprout or the very existence of the emptiness of the sprout. Okay? It's not that the sprout does not exist intrinsically, but its emptiness does exist intrinsically. That couldn't be possible, isn't it? Because emptiness of the sprout and the sprout have the same ultimate nature. Both of them don't exist intrinsically. Okay, we're on page 191. It is possible that one understands that sprout does not exist intrinsically, or sprout lacks intrinsic existence, but still one might grasp at the intrinsic existence of the emptiness of the sprout. Okay, that need to be worked out later again. Okay, are you with me so far? Right? It's possible that one realizes or understands that a sprout is non-intrinsically existent, but we might think that maybe the emptiness of the sprout is still intrinsically existent. So that need to be worked out. Okay, because those are two different things. And the example given is, I don't know. The example for me is even harder than the main concept here. So maybe it's my problem. It's on page 191 on the top. What does it say? Maybe I should read it. That might be better than me saying it. For example, in the absence of a pot, you would not develop the idea. The truth is that there is a pot, but you might develop the idea. The truth is that there is no pot. See. For me, the example is harder than the concept. We just translated. So I'll go with the meaning part, which is that it is possible for us to realize that a sprout itself does not exist intrinsically, but we might still, grasp at the intrinsic existence of sprout's emptiness, which needs to be looked at and worked out, later.
Geshe yonani ti ngobo na hinda jawa gyor yoba de mayno shetan be sheba tongmi karsa tongmi meba tongba ne khone chwa ni di gyor cheta na chikyo ne meba nyembu 매번 예본 중앙주 해송소사 다 거기 더다 당기 때가 시작은 저 해야 돼 그래서 아니 야 동바 예로 무트바 고와 임바 송디 시그리 걔도 동바 시죠 그 무트바 동이 시죠 가시 유나네 뭐바는 라히도 지바 유다 최적런 유튜브 뭐바는 지바 주그레스 뒤와 많이 봐 인자 어디 그래서 여반은 많이는 시대면시 시해봤어 다 자시는 동미 매버 동바니 근데 강한 시원 얘도 저 시다분이 즉시니 매번 인물 중앙就是제가 강야 동 랑시 주바세 제매장 디줄 다 있는 누구 랑시 주베 동바 코나양 랑시 주바면서 디레 더버지야요 말이지 그래서 랑시 주바 동을 제 미소 주시 매라서라 어다 디는 거 시리서라 디스그서리
So we are in the middle of page 191, third paragraph, with the stanza quoted from Aryadeva's 400 stanzas of Cheduk Shedak. So the explanation given on that is this. According to mathematicians, nothing exists intrinsically at all. Right? Everything that exists it lacks intrinsic existence, which means everything literally, right? And so from that standpoint, once we establish and understand that sprout lacks intrinsic existence, right? That's the same with any other phenomenon. Everything else lacks intrinsic existence, even though we might have to work out later that the emptiness of the sprout also lacks intrinsic existence as well. Our contention is that nothing exists intrinsically. Okay? So everything is empty of intrinsic existence. And so that stanza from Aryadeva's work, what it really suggests is that nothing would exist intrinsically. If any one phenomenon, reality, were to exist even slightly intrinsically, that means intrinsic existence is a reality. We cannot refute it, right? If something were to exist even intrinsically, slightly, then we really cannot refute the intrinsic existence of things. That must be accepted as it is. But the fact is that nothing exists intrinsically at all. Okay? In one sense, we should not have any qualms about whether the emptiness of the sprout is intrinsically existent or not, because it's just like any other phenomenon. It is non-intrinsically existent.
제가 뭐가 랑시 예배 돈이 이방 거는 랑시 매번 줘라. 대단한 랑 모두가 랑시 예배 줘에 랑시 매번 넘버 탐지도 고도면 모스. 어디서 그랬다. 제가 뭐 랑시 매배 돈이 거는 랑시 매번 돈이 고도고 얘는 얘네 랑시 매번 매주고 왔다. 돈이 돼 랑시 매번 차고 와. 랑시 매번 매는 돈이 매번 차다라 와. 매번 졸라 대단한 랑 모두가 랑시 예배다. 거기 랑시 예배다 랑시 맞고 코니 많이 배 파슬랄 배 길딩에 요마로 와. 요마는 랑시 좋아하는 거 야만 랑시 말고 코니 가름 쪽으로 와. 어디 그러서 졸라 대단한 랑 모두가 랑시 예배 랑시 남바다 근데 고바 미롱 왔어. 어디서 왔다. 랑시 예배 가도 얘는 얘네 랑시 얘는 랑시 예배 남바다 가도 말아. 근데 오메 줍다 용조 저디 So, towards the bottom of page 191, according to mathematicians, intrinsic existence and emptiness of intrinsic existence or non-intrinsic existence are mutually exclusive categories and realities, isn't it? Either the things should exist intrinsically or they should exist non-intrinsically. They couldn't be, both, or they couldn't be both. Whereas according to the critics, their position is that things are neither non-intrinsically existent nor intrinsically existent, right? So they think there's some kind of happy middle ground somewhere here, which there isn't, one. And so they have been thinking that as mathematicians make efforts to establish the emptiness of intrinsic existence or absence of intrinsic existence, they think that mathematicians are negating the conventional existence of everything.
If that were the case, then we cannot even contain emptiness of phenomena, isn't it? Because emptiness couldn't exist, right? If absence of intrinsic existence refutes any kind of existence, conventional existence, then emptiness is not feasible at all. Emptiness should also be thrown together with the tub water, right? The baby should go with the tub over there. That's the case. So for Madhyamikans, it's very clear that nothing could exist intrinsically at all. If anything were to exist intrinsically, then that must be accepted as a reality, and we cannot refute that, that kind of reality. Okay. No.
Rangin meba ni lo na rangin ni de rab zhou jus rangin meba lo kwa de rangin chuba de wa o chuba de res xie be ta zong de rang de ko na le xie da da man jin xie ma de se ene je ma wa yin je ma wa do ba xie wa ti xin du se da ko je ge ma ya se da man jin se na ge za ma yin se kha sum se ya ge se xie wa
na le
da do ba xie wa ti xin du la yin da ko kha sum de wa ga je da man jin la yin na ke tsik rashi mewa ni nguwa na rashi mewa doba shenas tsik rashi mewa rashi mewa do se tsik tege ene nguwa na rashi chuba doba shenas karsa rashi mewa na doba shenas rashi mewa doba de kare rashi chuba de rwa rashi mewa doba de chuba che rwa shenane tena pendi teba yang juwa shingna dene tsik rashi mewa ni ji nguwa na rashi ngoba she do karsa odi teba chewa ina deni tsik rangshi mewa yi di tsik sikwa ra tsik rangshi mewa yi da kanje choki tsik da rangshi me saya di keza re do shida tsik rangshi mewa yin za ene oma be tsik be da dang ten yu tu zo ge ene rangshi chuba tu ka tu o res tsik rangshi chub na kaya yo marwa odi sikwa sari te zuwa di tere choki tsik rangshi me se da tsik kwa rangshi me da ka tu ma res la ne tsik rangshi me na rangshi chuba kuya tsik rangshi chuba kuya ma res rangshi ma chuba tsik rangshi chuba ka tu res odi lago warwa odi yungda zuyundo odi dine tsik rangshi me ma niji ngobo nam yi rangshi ngoba she do se tsik rangshi me na ngobo se na tongta ba rangshi chuba she rangshi chuba gobe she gita dhubshi tensi chuba sunjin chu kare da tila ya tsik rangshi chuba gobe ma rangshi ma chuba tsik ine di go nungu re se adi rwa goba she do kete rangshi mewa ni ki goba na rangshi mewa ni goba she na ni rangshi mewa ni kaba ni ki she goba na rangshi na jewa njorla rangshi jewa she tongpa na maya pa njorla she di sawa songsa da di ka ma ni na di tsik di rangshi me se tsik di ine rangshi mewa ka dhugu yu na ene ngoba rangshi choru kura ngoba rangshi choru yu na ene ngoba na rangshi mewa rangshi tongpa ya mayi mayi chene ene she tangshi rangshi tongpa mayi mayi re dhugu kura she tangshi rangshi chobe she chua da rangshi me she tsik di rangshi mewa ka kura rangshi mewa dongsho di kare rangshi yoba dira di rangshi yunta rangshi mewa me dhugu kura o di sikwa sari o di dhiraga ya sewa songkha su da zondo rangshi le
다들 돈다 독도를 주시는
거죠. 독도를 주시는 거죠.
저렇게 컷 홀신스다.
I
just want the real gist.
네, 다 dire 그래서 다 계자마지 가슴 쓰는 거디 책디게 시가마지 가가 돼야 정거로 와시고로 와. 예. 다마지지만 도바시와 되기도 랑시 랑시면이 정거로지만 도바 신나니 이제 되는 밴드 태야 yo shino se adi pe kasum se adi la di khar was geshe she adi go ro geshe she adi go me hida khai go ma ro da yugo rangshi me se adi rangshi yo ko ka go me ji de hida khai rangshi me adi ka go ndo pe kasum asna geshe she adi ka go me do she me ma da se adi 아니 그죠 뭐 저세요. 그 말아. 그 말아. 어디 너지 정신 매바세 식디 그거 정신 여바 코너 찍고 가거든 뭐도지 정신 매바 가고 말해. 그죠? 어디서 다 동도 저시는. 계속 정신 매바 가도 있네. 엄마 정신 매바 리바 가게 정신 여바 가도 있네. 그래서 매바 가도 있네. 엄마로 정신 매바 두야면도 왔어. 어때 저다 정신 저바 요도도 없어.我习惯，但这些的现在关键呀，要让心之外的，让心没说人的碰松社会我给谁对吧？你怕啥？这可你看嘛，把这吃药嘛，我就是个。
So Geshe's explanation pertains to what you have read at the bottom of page 191 over to page 192. Stanza and a passage quoted from Arya Nagarjuna's refutation of objections, Trindal in Tibetan. Okay? And as I was telling Geshe, just can you summarize the meaning? You know, we go with every word, then things started to get dispersed in my mind. So basically, the main point here is that in making argumentation, Madhyamikins are telling their critics that things do not exist intrinsically. That statement is meant, to refute intrinsic existence of the things, not the non-intrinsic existence of the things, isn't it? And the example given in the passage is that if we tell someone, right, don't make noise, that statement only says, be quiet, right? It does not mean that you should not eat or you should not do any other thing. It just simply means just be quiet, right? So in the same way, the statements that Madhyamikins are making, things do not exist intrinsically. What that refutes is the intrinsic existence of the thing, not the non-intrinsic existence of the thing. If it were to refute the non-intrinsic existence of the things, as the critics claim, then all the logic and all the analysis that the Madhyamikins have brought together, it's just useless, If things were to exist intrinsically, right, then all this logic, rationality, analysis the Madhyamikins are using to debate with him has no purpose or a meaning. So that's the main point. Okay.
사실 동바여와 가라지르시 등고디에 해 테마다 야남이 동바니 따궁에 버 지바송 거다 또바니도 다도도 메바 송 시베 디레다 딜디레야 야남이 동바니 상지 돈이서 따궁에 버 지바송세도 따와게 바다 러기 저바지 따와게 바 노르고 송거와 거다 또바니도 다도도 메바 송세 거다 또바니 따와세 가서나 다 누구 정신 매와데 영조 영조 정신 쳐봤다 와데 얘는 설문을 따와서 들어 어디서 그래 건다 저 가서 저 매와 송시에 동바 니도 따와 디세야데 따고 매와데 가서 저 매와 송세야데 누구 정신 매와 따와라 얘는 저도 요말 송고 말했어 누구 정신 매와 동이데 정신 쳐봐 인스나 얘는 저도 설문을 따와서 저도 매와서 돼 간지다 어디 송에도 왔어 제가 다 뒤서 가게 가르까 그러잖아 정신 매서야 되겠니 정신 매바데 까고 말했어 정신 유바 코너 주고 가 그러면 디 정신 매바 까도 말했어 되게 따와들 근데 정신 매바 유바만 인세 되는 용어로 어때 거기서 다 정신 매바데 유바 까도 그다 그러시나 그때 정신 유바 까면서 정신 매바데 까고 말아 그것도 정신 매바 까시기도 와 어쨌다 때때 뭐가 주대해도 그러다 그러와 누구 돈이 되게 따와게 봐 누구도 따와게 봐 강가 좀 주레스 이나 돈이 되라히 저와 유스 라베이나 이니티 설문으로 따와서 돼 베스트 카보레스 어디서
So we are on the page 192 on the top. We have a stanza quoted from Arya Nagarjuna, which reads, I quote, "The conqueror said that emptiness eradicates all dogmatic views. As for those who take a dogmatic view of emptiness, he said that they are incurable," unquote. So explanation given on that stanza is that the conqueror or the Buddha, enlightened one, has said that the view of emptiness, it helps us to eradicate from within our mind all kinds of wrong views and distorted views. and that includes the view of intrinsic reality. Okay, but even with that, all the logic analysis, how we establish, for example, a sprout is empty of intrinsic reality. If we were to think and hold on to this view that maybe the emptiness of the sprout is intrinsically existent, which is possible, so that kind of dogmatic view of emptiness is incurable. Then there is no solution to that problem, right? Once we establish that nothing exists intrinsically, and then somewhere we thought that, what about the emptiness of all the things? Maybe it is intrinsically existent, so that dogmatic view, is incurable, a viewpoint.
다 그래서 송바이는 부다 발다 가다 또만이다 이 시고마시부터 대죠 다 거진 대대샤 거진 최대한 된점 있으라베나 인텔리아 된제거네 된점 머리 된제레선 도제 뒤로 도도베나 인데미 도토로 와세 도 누구레서 다 데미 도네데 누구 데미 코나 돈이 있으라베나 가서 된점 있으라나 이네 어디 다 이네 까토고 말했어 다 돈이 코나 된점 있으라나 근데 티셔츠 매질에 니 자라 이제 롱게 나 당위데로스라나 근데 나무 짠 메슬라비나 짠 메바테로스라야 치바레 다 거드대야 뭐지 다 거지 들어와 어디서 그래서 니 따지세도 그러자 니 샵데 가데 되거든 근데 가 놀랑시 지어봐나 놀미 저지바 다 거지 놀랑다 놀징아지 사야든가 그야다 지테로라네 근데 가티 메스라는 메바테로시스 라나 그 겁다줘요 말봐 어디서 왔다 겁다줘요 말해서 돈이 내버려 손도 이 겁다줘야 탑시도요 말했어 봐 내가 지다가 됨도 계량에는 될 탑시야 그랬어 그 그래서 땡땡시 그래서 인데미 들어야 알아봤어 어디서 왔어야 돼
In the middle of page 192, we have quite a big passage quoted from Buddhapalita's commentary on the fundamental treatise. And so Geshe-la's explanation pertains to that passage from Buddhapalita. And so according to Geshe-la's explanation, that we could, for example, establish sprout is not truly or intrinsically existent because it is dependently arisen or it is dependently existent. Using the logic of dependent arising or pratit samutpat, tental in Tibetan, we can establish that a sprout does not exist intrinsically or truly. Okay? But if we were to hold on to the notion that the emptiness of the sprout is truly existent or intrinsically existent, then it would rather be very difficult to find a sort of a way to explain, right, how that is not intrinsically existent, And the example given in that passage is like if somebody asks, you for a money, like, hey, give me some money, right? And you said, I don't have. Well, give me that. Now, what are we going to give? You said, I have no money. So what does it mean, give me that? It means there is no communication here, right? You said, I have no money. Well, if I have, I'll give you, right? But if you still say, give me that, so you're going to give the nothingness, right? So it's the same as that. If we could use the dependent arising to establish that sprout is non-intrinsically truly existent. But if we were to think that emptiness of sprout is truly existent or intrinsically existent, it would be rather very difficult, challenging to communicate to this individual, that could be us or me, that emptiness too is non-intrinsically existent. It's very difficult to do that.
다 대샤면 좋아요 나로 있어.
And can did they shana tunda shuma they can takama joya yore.
다 들으면 사제지 논음이 사제지 논은 되면도
So we need to stop there today, and I was checking Geshe-la. We're going to continue with this, because we did not finish here. So we will continue this next Sunday. Okay, column number 3. And now we welcome your questions and observations, and I'm sure you have a lot. I might have confused you in my translation. Let me admit that. It is on, I think. Yeah.
So what I understand, I don't know if I get it correctly, but basically what he's saying in this particular passage is that emptiness is not the intrinsic nature of things.
Emptiness is
Not the intrinsic nature
of things. Okay.
And that the truth of emptiness, which is emptiness being ultimate truth, but nevertheless, this ultimate truth that exists only conventionally.
It is what?
Exists only conventionally.
Okay, yes. Okay, let me go back and check with Geshe. Right. You're talking about the Buddha Palitas passage, right?
No, everything.
Oh, everything. Okay, that's true. Okay. Quran ke ha ko bchen ro wage. Emesa ta tanda this go ro wage ane chue tham je ne lu ngoma ta kare se tyo ka la ta tong ba ni de rest ro wage rashing ma ru ba ro wage. Ina rashing ma ru ba tong ba ni de ro wage. Te ya ane chue tham je ke ane rashing dru be ne lu di ma rest ro wage. 제가 동반이 대야 간데 저를 쓰되 코 타녀도 요래 스로하게 왔다 간데 동다 도도 되는 거 거로서 yeah yes that all part is yes to all of that you know the everything lacks intrinsic existence, right, which is the emptiness, and that emptiness, which is the ultimate reality of things, is not the intrinsic nature of phenomena, and that emptiness exists conventionally. Yes.
But then there is a statement, and I'm not sure where, maybe this is a different context, but
Okay.
that everything is a manifestation of emptiness, sometimes emptiness and bliss.
Yes.
But maybe this even from the Heart Sutra about emptiness. Now, so that means, doesn't that imply that the ultimate existence of emptiness? If everything is manifestation of emptiness, everything comes out of emptiness, that means that emptiness ultimately exists ultimately. This is the ground of being, the final truth,
Right.
emptiness.
So when you say ultimately, what do you mean?
Like the final
final one, yes,
the final
yes.
thing.
Right.
And isn't that almost the same as intrinsic?
Okay, sure. Okay. 그냥 this 거 와게다 바지 거에는 배는 탐제 동반이네 중벌 동배 잉래 샤르세죠 와게 동배 남르를 세죠 와 딜랍디오 강알이야 당한테 타르투베기 네루디 아니 동반이래 샤스와 타투베 네루디 동반이 세죠 간나 타투벌레도 갈때 야 랑신 주벌을 지 고된 집어 차가 말아서 고 타르르 툭셔도 다로 와게 마투셔도 동반이를 투디 거로 와게 다 용사 강가 탐제 동배 남르 제 동배 간래 샤르와 타투베 네주 셰세도 와 동반이도 왔어와 고 랑신 주베 다 동다 집어 차르고 말아서
대대 내가 저거 탈도는 해야 되지 다 되지가 가서 그래서 최 가리는 그럼 내가 먼저 매나 용도야 그런 체주를 직세 이니야 사무단 또 거야 체주지 체주처럼 뭐여라 체주라
그래
단다 탈도서 단다베 롱더 리발라메 맹아 대대 따고게 대대지 동이 탈도를 쓰고 말해
노서
어디서
노서 저 디기 가서
탈도이나 탈도 바디나 내로 쉬고 말이야
다인데 상마 동반이를 샤지 내로 타마데 이메네
또 뭔가 탈도는 쓰다 너도 농진도 지 벤자면다 속도서 가가는데 근데 로진 또 뭐 로직으로 와
그래
탐제 동배랑 하시더라
그래
어디래 이나 그 동배 남기서도 뒤 동박거리나 동배 윤발라 군사 나야들 잡면다 배 나야 속도 다들 제대로 로서 뭔가 줘 말해
그래 right
저도 동배 남기서 되더라
그래
어디래
what Geshe says is that you know, we can think in terms of at least two types of realities, right? One is sort of like everyday realities that we can experience through our sensory perceptions. You know, we don't need to think a lot about it. You know, we just kind of more like direct engagement with objects and experience that. But there's certain kind of reality that requires a lot of critical thinking, analysis, rationality, right? And maybe we need teachings from lamas. We have to read books and go more deeper level, okay? And you're right in that everything we say, you know, has the same taste of emptiness, right? Have the same nature. Everything comes out of emptiness. So emptiness is the final truth or the reality. But that final does not equal to mean it is intrinsically existent, you know? So it final means that, you know, it's much deeper truth. You know, we can only access it through deep thinking, analysis, and you know, rationality. It's not something easy like an everyday experience. You know, but that finality of that final, the word tama, the final that's the last one. There's nothing beyond that. It does not mean it is intrinsically existent. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Questions? Oh, yes.
It seems to me that what the Madhyamikans are positing is that nothing exists intrinsically, but things do exist in the sense that they're conceptually designated illusions. And because they're conceptually designated, they can exist, and that's the only way they could exist. Is it true then that all conceptual designations flower out of consciousness? And do those conceptual designations flower out of consciousness and dependence upon an individual's karma?
Individual's karma, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Quran condition that this for that and Uma Bagi Rawagan, the GSTDL Yas Rawagan, that Temba Duban, Ranshin to be church, Yamares Rawagan. A church Tamje Temba Yoba cousin, talk that Rawagan, talk with Shawarwa, talk with Tash, which must see Yamares, Nelusing at the Rawagan. Says a talk about Taba Dia, Takasore, talk about the Anzu talk on the shouting or Wagan. Sidu Kanalia, the talk that said the talk that day and me, Cheta Sosogi, Lelia Doyor was Wagan. Talk that says, Kansa Sosogi lay or what? Talk that the Lelia Dawachatigoras or Wagan. Cherdamje, that Yumadabu rest or Wagan, Ranjing drew your mare. And talk about that was on the rest of again. Talk about talking, talk about the Anzu talk about again. Didn't talk about the Anzu number 7 year shouting or again. Said to Kana, didn't they talk about that was talk that said the Kansa Sosogi led the door or rest of again.
Talk about Tagaya, Page led the door usually. Because under the Paja, Munju Paja said, the Gonza Chagoa, teaching the Page led the door.
Kansa Sosogi.
Talk about Munju Paja, the Dangzi to the Dangde Paja, the Lola Sharia, the tiny diamond, the Geshe, Munju Paja says,
Munju said again,
Munju, Mombo, that had the Geshe Mombo share, I did some Mombo town, detail, Kumdiju Mare, what is it? Kumdiju.
I'll tell Joy,
what did the Munju Paja song? Let the joy use and degree.
The test is against yes number, could do the pair was shy in again.
No, Paja, Pen that the girls this is a this is those do share the Kaji up in a Petsamul Gabo Joe. Yakaji young this one Gabo Joe, who is so she don't mean that. Or they got a job among the walk or come down to the child young girl. What did it?
This and the talk that
is that the better than the Shena led the job, maybe the money, led the joy usually. So the Kabakuna teacher or door, they led the joy you thought.
Geshe feels that, that conceptual designations, may be related to individual karmas, that he feels that depending upon our mental habits, carried from many lifetimes. And when we talk in terms of pakcha, dispositions or latencies, there are all kinds of latencies, categories, types. And one is called, I will use the Tibetan word, ngunje ji pakcha. Ngunje means expression, literally translating, right? Words, expression. So that kind of the imprints of the pakcha is related with our karmic habit, And so depending upon our habits, some people, maybe that karmic habit is related more with, I don't know, the sports or arts or something, related to their passion and interest. So he feels that that conceptual designations are related to, individual karmas. Yeah. Thank you.
So, last week you talked about for.
Could you use that so that Mike? Sorry. Yeah. Thank you.
So last week you talked about for a projection to take place, there has to be certain attributes that the object has. Like there's a big difference between a telephone pole and a beautiful woman. So just, are there any qualifications for what you talked about? There has to be something for the object, in the object for the potential projection to take place. What are those compositions or whatever?
Based upon which we make the designation,
Yeah.
right? Okay, sure. Koran kan di shu gore lo sang gen dan da nganzo kazan tok da se de kan ya lo tak ze kan ka ko ye bi chaba ge yo mar wa ge le se tok we ta sam re se de kan ka kar labla di mar wa ge ina ko bi ge 갈수 거야 뭐고 거래 즉 된거 거라 맞죠 간다 간다 포목이 개발하는 유네 개발하는 포도 뭐 다다래 고 비게 지 계절을 샤안라고 말도 포로 뭐라 네가 말하게 그래서 니네 계절에 간대줄 문제 제고 원해서 그냥 답변이 닥시 세말이야 고르 말로게 비게 유들 때는 와게 다들 뒤따는 딕사레서 지어로 와게 거짓말 라서요 말어디
다들 라도니인데 지금데 지금 자 가게는 다리 세말을 라기 뭐야 말신 로지도가
알려놓았어
다리 세마지 라베이나 가르친다 그게 유코는 주야 차기를 피해되고 그래서
알아놓았어
가르쳐 들라는 pe 유코는 때 지금 거야 그 소리 그거 지금도가 당가도 용자시는 다리 세마세 시고라 다리 세마세도 잖아 아니 강가리야 아니 풍글 딸 풍글 다 현 지금 말이 그런 따보는 이 동시에 죽는 다리 세마도 차로
나래
다 들으면 다다 나이 세마 여버스 고머스나 건지 커피게 따오나 이 따르스 따에 동시 네마다 엔 bungu르도 bun구스는데 뭐 건지 칸데 따오나 이 그런 거 동문도 시토요나 엔 세마히 인도가 메두는 리고레스 다들 세마히 인도면 이다 그랬어 좋아 딸 bun구 따바다 딸 있다 니가 떠고 따듯이 봐라 유군은 뭐 직바시 딸 bun구 따바스 라면 티 세마히 있는 거라 다 보고 말아. 다 그런 따스다나 다 레데서 그 세마히 있는 거야 말아. 도 샤고 시다 효도는 인도.
다 이내 괜찮다. 따로지 세면 때 되는 제 뉴버 세겐데 거라 야고 유군에 그딱 따로를 지고 말고 때 되는 지금 밑에서 유를 따다 맞아 삼로 따스게 말아.
다 등스 거라. 다 잡아디야. 레데 kopchik tas laina. 인따레 다스란. 다고 따에 이제 따에 동물들 형형으로 들어야 돼. 지금은 다고 따보는 이 태버와
나래
어디서 거다
나래
또 그 딸에서 그 봉을 따다는 딸 봉을 따는데 또 따다 지금 봐 유행원데 매부터 지금 봐레스 얘는 따보는 신기 비게 타니 저도 시토도 문제 어디 따고 그래서 타면 서마히 있는 거 해야지 말해 너는 심을 때 어디서 그래 타니에 서마히 있는 거 해야지 와 어디래다
So Geshe, the answer consists of a couple of points here. In response to your question is, we say that we means the Madhyamika, the philosophy is that nothing exists intrinsically, everything is conceptually designated, right? Merely imputed. But then of course, that is dependent upon certain characteristics, right? You cannot label everything whatever you want. It's not going to be that, right? We cannot call a donkey a horse, and it's not going to be a horse, So there has to be something to go by. And that's why in the Buddhist text, number one is they talk about what we call dakshitsema in Tibetan, valid basis of imputation or labeling, okay? They talk about that. There has to be a it's not enough to give a label onto something. That basis has to be a valid basis, almost like deserving that label, right? It can fulfill that, right? Then there are some philosophers or schools, but they say, no, once you say there's a valid basis of labeling, it somehow ends up saying that something exists from the side of the object intrinsically, even a little bit, right? There's a problem with that. So they said, you cannot talk about the valid basis of labeling because then you are suggesting there has to be something from the side of the object, even tiny, mini, beanie, bead. Well, that is there, So that's not working. But then, according to referring to the Lamrim Chema, Jerome Buchevat says that, we have to, it's not only that the basis has to have certain characteristics that deserve the label, but we have to check whether any other valid perception invalidates or contradicts, right, challenges that valid perception. Dakshitsama. For example, we have a donkey and we have a horse, okay? Let's say we don't know their names, okay? There's two animals. And if you call donkey a horse and horse a donkey, well, that's a label designation, isn't it? Okay, but it doesn't work. The horse is not going to fulfill the duty of the donkey, and donkey is neither going to fulfill the responsibility of the horse. Okay, because there are other valid perceptions that's going to challenge and contradict us, right? How dare you call donkey a horse? It's not a donkey, it's a horse, right? There's other valid perceptions challenging it, isn't it? So it depends on a number of those criteria, if you will, that the valid basis of labeling plus that whatever label you give, it is not invalidated by another valid, conventional valid perceptions. So if you label a horse, in terms of labeling, it's the same thing, right? What's the difference between calling donkey a horse and horse a horse? It's just a label, we just label. Nothing exists from its own side. Neither the donkey exists intrinsically, nor the horse exists intrinsically. They are both same, right? But the label somehow works with the horse because the horse performs, the horseness function. Okay, I have to make up new words. No, you're getting kicked out of it, right? So making it right. So the horse, it performs that function, whereas the donkey is a right label for the donkey. It performs the donkey function. So that's how, we look at many different criteria. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions?
뭐 가게 되시기도 하셔도 가서 가서 다시 처음에 페이지를 유 누구서 찾아오러 와. 그래서 다 과학적으로 되게 말씀이시도 와. 다 그냥 과학래야도. 그래서 다시 세디 유를 희워로 와. 지도 로지고 먼저서 차 말에 차로 와. this one. 디시나 타지야 와.
So Geshe himself feels that, when we talk about there needs to be valid basis of labeling, and those who say, well, you can't go with that, then you are somehow accepting something exists from side of the object, right? He says, that starts to make a little more sense, because we are saying that it's not enough for the conceptual thought to label, something. There has to be something from the side of the object to label, right, onto. So there is some kind of that issue. So we have to think about that. He's not making any decisive points here, but we should consider all these alternative viewpoints. Yes. Could I get the mic here? Thank you. Also, well, maybe it's a lunchtime. I don't have enough energy to pull the mic to the side.
Kappa actually is one of those who would not use the terminology valid basis imputation.
Say it again.
Would be one of those who would not be using, because these three criteria that he lists there about what is conventionally existent is known to conventional consciousness, and all the others, the three of them, have nothing to do with valid basis of imputation.
Right.
So he would be one of those, right? Who would he would not have coined that term, valid basis of imputation.
So are you saying that is Gyeltsen one of those who accept the term valid basis?
No, to the contrary, he does not use it.
Oh, he doesn't accept that. That's
no,
what
because he's talking about these three criteria. They have nothing to do with valid basis of imputation.
Okay. Kurang kan di sugar again. That and the king the kan number wa. Takshi sama yours said the love in and the penet because you going to test group that was charged to say that's tawa shaken jorwa. So the Jerumuji Kombasha did timber as a Jerumuji this one was again. Dakshi sama jarwa again. Sama shaking manubas, Mango Jawing with all. The mother Dakshi sama chico shash and again young to the Chagus and Jerumuji Kombasha and the pick the timber as well.
Jerumuji the Hitsema Kai Shem da.
No, sir.
타집에 힘을 잡아 시라로 타집에 세마시 메네 와스 데코나 지기지 리벤더 멤버다 어디 타니도 여다 대샤노 디게 디는 다기 세메게 잡는다 민두야 당근데 다기 세마세 페이지 강갈 페이지를 용도 어디 페이지에 명하서 마 용어 인사를 제 송나면도
알아다 기시 제르무지 기시 다기 세마스 페이지 제 요에나 다기 개인수가 공부도 참고지
나는 시면 다기 세마면도 현다 다기 세마게 자 요말이 타집에 힘을 잡아 타집에 세마시 메네 봐서라 데코나 지기도 리벤더 멤버 송샤로 타니도 예다 타니도 예선다 예배세디 대샤로
알아 저 다시 세마스 책 페이지 맞아베 공부 되게 치죠 데르승을 제르무지 공부 제 대참 기시 다시 세마스 라베이나 걔네 라고는 두버지 착로 지서 디 페이지만 하면 그래서
어디서 다 제르무지는 다기게 자메단 또베딱 좀 세야 돼 랑자 샤초야 소샤로 와 다기 세마 예스 라베이나 그 딱사가 그 등을 파지 영과这个有关设计的呢，给你预计过的说吧，都没有想把你做上周说是夸你多。现在这新运动员的来的时候嘛，的俺的新运动现在这些的两百这么多少个。
I was just making sure that I understand everything so that but so Geshe said, Gyeltsen Rinpoche has not used even the term valid basis for labeling anywhere, right, in lumbering. His three criteria, to sort of validate whether something exists, conventional or not, or those three things we talked about before, right? Something we called Tanyebe Semala Taba, that which is known to valid, conventional valid perception, right? And Tanyebe Sama Shenyi Menaba, that it is not invalidated by any other valid conventional perception. That is even not contradicted by the ultimate, right, valid, right? Those are his criteria. So he even didn't use the word valid basis of labeling. And those who do, then that question might come out, right? So what is that valid basis? It looks like there's something we are negotiating. Like even if it's like a 5%, there's something there, right? But Gyeltsen doesn't need to deal with that issue, So.
Can I make a statement?
Sure.
Could the valid basis be the transitory collection?
Okay. Then this word again. When you say transitory collection, what do you mean?
That's of the object disappearing there that you make the projection.
Okay. This word Geshe can did Dakshi Sama Yuba want to know again. On the picture church Tong the or again. Dagaran Dakshi Sama Shashin, the some Dax the Chagor.
다시 생활이 돼. 당가 좀될 쪽서 따그러와. 다 다시 데려와.
Right.
세다 쪽서 해야 될 다시 생활 거래서 다시 생활이 다시는 데려와.
Lore.
근데 단다 유일파주 중이라고 차서.
Lore. Yeah.
당은 그래서 똑바따서 뭐 당발 주다바다 루을 따바니데 딱딱 찍바데서 야지 요말에 용라시다.
Lore.
다시 생활이 돼. 딱딱 찍바데 차와봐.
Lore.
어쩌죠?
Yeah, in terms of like those who accept valid basis of labeling or imputation, it's just like if we talk about this table, let's say we don't know what's called table, right? There's some object there, right, with those legs and everything. So that's the basis, right, onto which we label table, which means something exists there, right? Almost like from the side of the object, there's with something, So that's the issue we have to deal with. According to Madhyamigans, when we talk about, mere conceptual designations or labeling, as far as that designation is concerned, there is no difference between labeling a real snake a snake and a coiled rope a snake. In terms of labeling, it has to be the same thing, But when we assert there has to be valid basis for labeling, then that issue comes up. What is actually that? There has to be something on the side of the object, And that becomes problematic, and Gyeltsen did not use that term, right, anyway. Okay, we'll stop there today. Kange Lord, Timye, Tinja, Ninda, Namda, Rapseve, Chinye, Dungun, Geshe, Seje, Nije, Tuga, Legmamze, Kanda, Seve, Zara, Mundon, Dongen, Gezeve, Rosa, Gula, Puji, Taze, Yanla, Juju, Yang. Rosa, Zero, Nyamo, Nilo, Leye, Charo, Dreze, Marie, Mese, Dongen, Chinye, Juze, Radena, Dene, Daze, Saju, Da. Yendeng Lunzo, Yese, Tuvi, Gu, Chusha, Shuda, Chuni, Jambe, Yangla, Du, Omara, Bazana, Omara Bazana, Zende, Kye, Yera, Vese, Talu, Temo, Mimba, Ras, Kada, Tenju, Shunlu, Doba, Lode, Nawan, Zedo, Lode, Gazu, Udon, Bega, Gesan, Pome, Chudon, Mimba, Temba, Zela, Wando, Daniel, Shogun, so on the page 21. Obeisance to my Guru and Protector Manjushri, who holds at his heart a scriptural text, symbolic of his seeing all things as they are, whose intelligence shines forth as the sun, unclouded by delusions or traces of ignorance, who teaches in 60 ways with the loving compassion of Father for his only Son, all creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering. You whose dragon thunder-like proclamation of Dharma arouses us from the stupor of our delusions and free us from the iron chains of our karma, who wields this sword of wisdom, giving down suffering wherever sprouts appear, clearing away the darkness of ignorance. You who have been pure from the beginning, who have completed the stages achieving the highest perfection of a bodhisattva, whose princely body is adorned with 112 marks of a Buddha, I bow down to you, Manjushri, O Marabhazanadi, O compassionate one, with the brilliance of your wisdom, illuminate the darkness enclosing my mind, enlighten my intelligence and wisdom, so that I may gain insight into Buddha's words and the texts that explain. Like the sweet perfume of white lotus, born in the ocean of knowledge, nourishing honeybees, the fortunate being, your fame pervades all directions. You are proficient and powerful in upholding the precious doctrine. To you, O Lobsang Tenzin Wangda, respectfully I pray.
Kính lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi, bậc đại trí ngài điều phục hai chướng ngại, tựa nhật quan lan tỏa khắp mười phương, bậc thực chứng chân nghĩa màu rốt ráo, từ tim ngài Bát Nhã Kinh thủ hộ nhiệm màu, cõi luân hồi chúng sanh thọ nghiệp báo, bị ngăn che bởi phiền não vô minh, sở hữu 60 pháp âm thủ thắng, cùng đại bi ngài hóa độ chúng sanh, tựa từ mẫu chăm lo cho quý tử. Tiếng rồng vang ngài thức tỉnh hữu tình, thoát khỏi vòng luân hồi nghiệp chướng. Tận diệt muôn vàn khổ đau cùng ách nạn, trường tử Như Lai tối thắng toàn giác. Ngài an trụ nơi thập địa pháp vân, báu thân ngài trang nghiêm thanh tịnh, 112 tướng hảo Như Lai. Đê đầu đảnh lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi, cúi xin ngài tận diệt ám chướng vô minh. Om Arapasanadi. Con khẩn cầu dưới gót sen bậc đại trí, bàn pháp lực diệt phiền não vô minh, được trí sáng con thâm nhập nghĩa màu, pháp vi diệu cùng muôn vàn luận giải. Như diệu hương ngọt ngào từ sen trắng, đàn xanh nơi trí thù thắng đại dương, hàng thiện căn như ong mật thọ nương, hồng danh ngài khắp mười phương quảng bá.
Niyanda ya